Well, last week we shared together an experience of forgiveness that many of you said was meaningful. It's a good day. We are all human. We all need to receive forgiveness for the things that have happened in our lives. And we all need to forgive. And today I would like to again talk about something deeply spiritual, but again, very simple. In fact, I'd like to just talk today about happiness and sadness. I've been doing ministry for 35 years now. And what is real, what my real treasure is in my ministry, what I carry in my spirit are all the joys and sorrows that I have experienced with people in Jesus' name. I have shared with people nearly unimaginable tragedies. I think the death of little children always seems the worst. And I have watched children grow up into faithful adults, which is so wonderful, or been there when they were bailed out of jail, or held hands with people who died quietly and peacefully or terribly and with great labor. I have come to love people at the bottom of life, the desperate ones, people who are shunned by other people, and also people of great success. I have struggled with the tantrum of adults who were childish and wanted their own way. I have been disgusted by husbands who arrogantly abuse their wives. And I've also been deeply moved by Christians who showed such selfless goodness, such dear saints. I have talked with people deeply in love and people deeply in hate. And that's what I want to talk about more today, something deeply spiritual but very simple. The Christian life is joys and sorrows, happiness and sadness. And of course, the happiness part we all get, and we almost feel entitled to it if we have faith. But it's the sadness that's often the concern. Because it's not just the sadness, but the sense that somehow being sad is somehow unfair or unjust, and that it somehow shouldn't be that way if we are Christians. What I want to say, what I've learned is that sadness is a very good thing. That it's okay and it's important and it's spiritual to know sadness in your life. After all, that's what the prophet Isaiah talks about today, that the Messiah, God's chosen one, will be a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. But of course, what I want to talk about today is probably going to contradict what has become gospel in life today. But that's okay too, because Jesus said to be in the world, but not of the world. Let me ask you, does a fish know that it is swimming in water? Probably not. In the same way, some of the things we believe as American, postmodern, suburban people are simply the water that we swim in. And probably the most normal, common, and not questioned value in life that we all hold is that we all should be happy. That we ought to be. That we have a right to be. As the Declaration of Independence says, we are all entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We deserve to be happy. We want our children to be happy. And even as Americans, we often expect that in some way our faith ought to make us happy. And if we're not happy, there must be something wrong with us or wrong with our faith. More than any other generation or people in the world, Americans today believe and swim in the power of positive thinking. It is interesting to note, though, the pursuit of happiness, as the Declaration of Independence says, actually came from a quote from John Locke, a famous British philosopher. And what he said is, everyone has a right to life, liberty, and property. You see, when we really unpack the word happiness as Americans see it, real happiness is usually connected with stuff. Homes and cars and property and wealth and investments, the good life, we call it, a life of stuff. And probably if we could think of an example, at least for the moment, there is no better person to express the end point of this American ideal of American happiness, the pursuit of property and happiness, than Donald Trump. He is the one who has done it all. $10 billion, I think he says. And he certainly absolutely believes in having the right positive attitude and self-confidence and winning the game and to be happy and to acquire lots of property. But let me ask you this. Would you want to live with Donald Trump and be his son or daughter or wife? And certainly by his own comments recently about faith and religion, he doesn't seem to have much need for any kind of spirituality in his life. So what would Christians say? What would Christians say is real happiness? Well, when I think of Lillian Harshaw, who was such a dear saint here, who was so beautiful and spiritual as a person, but if you knew her, she knew great tragedy and sadness in her life, as well as great joy. And compared to Lillian, Donald's billionaire life to me seems so pale and so thin in comparison. So let me ask you a deeper spiritual question. Who says that we are only supposed to be happy? Who says? And that if we don't have a positive attitude and positive thoughts, that there must be something wrong with us. I mean, what about Jesus? Did he have a happy, blessed life? What about the times, as the lesson said, when he left the crowd and went off to be alone and to be solitary and to pray by himself? And what about the command to us that we should take up a cross and follow him? Is bearing a cross being happy? Is being happy all the time real? Are we becoming Facebook people with pasted-on smiles who pass on happy quotes to remind us all to think good thoughts all the time? Is the church a happy factory that is supposed to dole out weekly blessedness to help us in the good life? Or is worship a spiritual place where we deeply live and act out real life? Rituals of death and life and our humanness and forgiveness and blessings and deep hunger and joy and sorrow and gain and loss and tears and laughter. Did you know that most of the people who have created awesome works in life, in literature and incredible art and amazing music, were all people who left an indelible impression of greatness to all of humanity? Most of these people created their treasures out of periods of deep sadness. Herman Melville, George Handel, Beethoven, Abraham Lincoln, Jackson Pollock, Vincent van Gogh, Marilyn Monroe, Jim Carrey, Emily Dickinson, Sylvia Plath, Edward Hopper, Bruce Springsteen, Joni Mitchell, Robin Williams, just to name a few, all struggled with deep sadness and melancholy. And their wonderful gifts came out of the deep experience of feelings of pain and suffering that they wrestled with. When you read Christian spiritual literature, the saints talk of moments of great joy and even ecstasy, but also terrible moments of feeling unworthy and abandoned. Some even talk about the dark night of the soul. And maybe you didn't know this, but I suspect you do. from knowing that. From knowing all of you, I think it's a fair estimate to say that at any one time here, probably a third of you are sad when you come here to worship. You have experienced times of depression, grief, loss, unhappiness, disappointments, brokenness, trouble in relationships. And if you are not feeling that way, you know someone who is. And I just want to tell you that that's okay. You have a right to feel what you feel. All feelings are a gift of God. And no one should make you feel guilty about that. And certainly no one should ever tell you that you should have a better attitude. And no one should try to fix you or make you better. Because from a spiritual standpoint, there's nothing wrong with your feelings, even feeling sad. And when you are sad, often you are simply feeling things deeply. And that's where literature and art and music and great thoughts and new life come from. Because you see, we're all creatures of habit, and we don't like to change. And if you are all happy all the time, you just get numb with this kind of blank smile on your face. And you keep repeating things. But when you are in pain, you are ready for a change. You are ready for things to be different. And you are open and ready for new life to be born from your labor. Now, of course, there's a level of sadness that's debilitating, that becomes so overwhelming that it's impossible to cope, and that's a different matter. When you feel that, you need to get help. And there are amazing people and amazing medicines today that can help you with that. It can help you get to a level where you can deal with what you're dealing with. But just sadness, feeling depressed, that's okay. That's a part of life. It's a spiritual thing. It's a good thing. It has a purpose. And most of all, it's real. You see, when you go to a medical doctor, and you go in the doctor's office and you say, I have a pain, the doctor will say, that's terrible. Let me give you something so we can take the pain away right away. That's the doctor's job, is to give you medicine to take away the pain. But when you go to a spiritual counselor and you say, I'm in great pain, the counselor will say, that's good. I will not take it away from you. Can you just stay with it and hold on and allow it to teach you what you will need to see, because now you are no longer content. You are ready for a change. And now something new can be born in you if you just stay with the pain. Now, of course, if we return to dear Donald Trump, and you tell him that sadness is good, he will probably say you are nuts, right? Crazy. And yes, if your life is primarily concerned with the pursuit of happiness, in the sense of the acquisition of property and stuff and in doing business, then yes, that is the way of the world. It smiles and self-confidence and bravado and burying weakness. And certainly for worldly people, pain is never good, and it's always the enemy. In fact, sometimes it's amazing the lengths that people will go to avoid pain. When you look around at all of the substance abuse and flights into denial and pleasure and avoidance, it's really amazing what people do to avoid pain. And yet sometimes when you look at all the celebrities in life and how wonderful their life seems and how we envy them for their lives, how strange it is that we always see all the tragedies that happen to them and to their children. And it teaches us there is more to life than that kind of wealth and happiness and celebrity we see around us. Jesus said, what if I gain the world but lose my soul. Real, deep, human life is spiritual, and spiritual life is both joys and sorrows. The price of great joy in life is great sadness. To be against happiness is to be close to joy, to embrace ecstasy. To experience brokenness is to yearn to live. The pain of never being sure is that you can perpetually imagine new possibilities beyond reason. To give birth, you must first be in labor. Here's one last picture, and this is personal. For me, I've always deeply loved the fall. It expresses for me that full sense of happiness and sadness. The brilliant colors exploding on the hillside, reaching a climax, the fruits of a long expected harvest, the sad fading sunlight and the shortening of days, and also the approach of death and falling leaves, both joy and sadness. And so many things in real life are like that. Joy and sadness in birth, in baptisms, in graduations, in marriages, in funerals, joy and sadness. It feels so real and so alive. As Jesus said, "Take up your cross. Lazarus, come from the tomb. I am the resurrection and the life. Though you die, yet shall